17th of March. I'm going to be sowing some peas today in gutters. Some of you will have seen me do this before, and the reasons behind it, which basically help prevent a little bit of pest loss or damage, because obviously if you sow them direct in the ground, mice, birds, can quite easily dig them out. But I like doing them in the gutters. It gives you a bit of time because the soil's still a bit cold and they might rot off, so you can kind of steal 3 or 4 weeks if you do them in gutters. It gets them off to the start. Because once they've germinated, pests tend to leave them alone. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you want to subscribe, great. Go ahead and click subscribe button. There'll be all details in the description below on how you can, purchase certain things. It supplied me with things. So there's a few handy links down there for discounts and stuff. And also, if you want to support the channel, all the details are in the description below. So the variety is Hurst Greenshaft. I've grown it for years now. I've tried a few other ones. I used to do one called Feltham First years ago. I used to sell that like in February. But I just stick with Hurst Greenshaft now. I can do a sowing in March and another one sort of, very start of May. Depends on how the season goes. If you've got an extra space, you can sort of successionally sow them. I have soaked these for a few hours. You don't have to. It just kind of speeds up the germination. I don't like soaking them overnight sometimes because they can kind of, especially if you push them into pots, they can be a bit soft because you can sow them in module trays, pots. They're not difficult to grow, but they are quite easy to rot off if they get a little bit too wet and a bit too cold. So we sow them in these, and I'm probably going to pop them in polytunnel or in the house for probably about 4 or 5 days till I start seeing, a little bit of sign that something's germinating. Then they'll come out under cover, and then once they get about an inch high, I'll put them outside to the open, so they'll be watered by the rain and open to the elements, because the elements will make them a sturdier plant because you get a bit of breeze. And then it kind of gets them ready. They're fully hardened off by the time they're ready to go out. I usually like to put them out once they start growing these little tendrils, which is what they use to climb and hold on to, whatever you're supporting with, whether it's nets or twigs and things like that. So I started working out how many gutters I need to cover the actual length of the actual row I do. And I kind of worked out in 5-foot sections, roughly about 30 to 40 grams of peas is a good spread, so it's not too dense and it's not too thin. So you're allowing some there obviously for failed germination, because you do. And these are my own seeds, so at the end of the year when you get some pods, just let them go a bit overripe. They tend to go a little bit yellowy in colour, and it's like the peas are that tough. So I'll just let them dry out, put them in a zip seal bag or a jar, and use them for your peas next year. So I'm just going to try and tip some of the water out. But you can soak them for a few hours, but it's not essential. So just don't give them too much water. Obviously you need to water them to start off, but just it's easy to add a little bit more if you need to rather than take it away. So it's just a case that you can sow them like in a 5 dice, but that's a bit time consuming. It looks all nice and neat if they all germinate, but I'm just bunging them in. It's just plain compost. It's a mixture of my own, a bit of spent, and a bit of green compost, recycled compost that I've got supplied by a company. And they don't need anything too spectacular to start them off with, because they're going to be going in the ground. So there's enough sort of food in here to keep them going, until they've all germinated. You can space them out a bit more if you want to go through and even them out, but I'm just going to bung them in. This compost is probably about 1.5 to 2 centimetres down, because some places, it'll say, plant them like a 2-inch deep and things like that. That's all right, but they can rot off down there. Say, because the soil temperature here in the UK is still really cold. It's like averaging sort of 8 to 10 degrees. Peas will germinate at quite cold. They do prefer cool weather. They don't like really hot sunshine. So they are a bit of an early and a late season type thing, really. But they like obviously nice bright skies to get them going. Roughly, this variety will take probably 80 to 100 days from sowing now to harvest. And then, so probably I'll be looking at about a month before that date, I'll sow the next batch, because these will be going up to the plot. probably in about 4 weeks' time. Middle of April is when I'm going to be planting everything up at the plot. Well, everything is ready anyway. I've had a few problems with some seeds, just like the whole packet's been dud. I've had it the odd time, the odd year, you know, and it is a bit disappointing, you know, because I don't sort of like throw them away, just in case they do just germinate slow, because sometimes things like spring onions and that, they can take a while to germinate. So, but if you've had no sign of anything with, like, you know, a month or something, then they're not going to come. So if I don't see anything usually with like things like lettuce, tomatoes within like 2 weeks, it's kind of like chances are there's something not quite right. So instead of wasting time, just sow some more or buy some more in. But, I mean, it's sort of like say with peas, try and space them all about, you know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart, but nah, just bung them in. It'll be fine. I'll just dry my hand. So I'm just going to fill these up now with a bit of the same stuff really. It's just, like I say, it's a mix of, you know, spent compost, my own compost, some green waste, and it's the spent compost was what I used for my peppers last year, so it's got a bit of perlite in it. But you can just get a bag of multi-purpose compost and that'll be fine. You know, peas don't need anything fancy. The thing I've found, obviously, if you're using your own sort of compost, it can get a bit wet and sticky, so just be careful when you're watering it. You know, if your compost feels damp already, it's fine. Sometimes these days, if it was due to rain, I'd leave these out to get rained on for a couple of hours, provided it wasn't chucking it down. You don't have to block the ends of your gutters up. I've just got to put tape across, but there's a little gap at the bottom, so any excess water can actually just drain off. You know, it's surprising when you're doing a few gutters, you do use quite a bit of compost. But I suppose when you put it out at your plot and everything, or in your garden, it's a bit of bonus feed for the soil and for the plants. You know, it all helps. You don't have to go too mad pressing it down. What you might notice is when your peas are coming through, big chunks of compost will lift up out. But don't worry about it. As they're up and you start watering, it'll all go back down again. It's fairly straightforward. And it's just another job you can do while you're waiting for the season to get underway. I always find in the UK here, it always sort of, 1 minute it's too wet and too cold, and next minute you're off, you know, temperature's up. It's time to get cracking, and you're just kind of starting things then when you think, well, I've got stuff ready. If you're just holding it back in pots and that, as soon as you get the sort of green light to go, you know, get growing. Because it's a fairly short season here in the UK. It's more so for my allotment because it's such a floody area that one can really grow as far as end of October, November maybe, and then it's just too wet, so I'm not even going to entertain over winter or anything up at the allotment. I can do things in the garden, but I try and grow enough in the main season. Try and do like 2 crops, especially brassicas, and plenty of onions, all the storable stuff, because you know they'll see you right through the winter. You know, things like garlic and that stuff for ages. You know, I've still got probably 60 onions left, and still perfectly fine. You know, I've done previous videos this year of sowing my onions. It's getting a little bit late now for onion seeds, but you can still put sets in. But if you do with onion seeds, you will get something if the season allows it, you know. Because once you get into the later part of the season, that's when the old mildew and things like that arrive, and other sorts of problems, because it's quite humid. You know, but by then, it's all about spacings really. If you've got good airflow between things, it kind of prevents that. And if it's not a wet year, that always helps. Same with like potato blight, that comes different times each year. You know, quite lucky last year to be honest. I've had a good couple of years Got a few problems like, but that's just the way gardening goes. There's only so much you can be in control. And if Mother Nature wants to put a dampener on things, she doesn't have to do that sometimes. You get a day spare to go and do something, and that's the day it ends up chucking it down. So I try and get as much stuff when you get an hour to get something done. Just pop out and get it done. But I don't mind a bit of rain, because the last couple of years it has been quite dry, to be honest. I'm going to try and grow as much as I can in the ground this year, even peppers. Just to save on the watering, really, because it's quite a chore. It's okay with a few pots, but when you've got loads of pots, it can get quite time consuming. And when it gets really hot, it's like nearly enough on a daily basis. I'm not pressing this down hard, she's in the back of my hand, and that just kind of makes sure that the whole seed is sort of in contact with compost. And I'll give it a quick water, and that's it really. I won't water them again unless they dry out, of course. Well, because this compost that I have put on is pretty dry, it'll take a bit. You know, and if you get a breezy day, the sun's out, bring them out, let it dry it off a bit. You know, because I can usually tell by the weight of it, you know, I mean, that's not ridiculously heavy, so I'm quite confident. As long as they don't get too cold, they'll be fine. So, thanks for watching, take care. As I said, there'll be details in the description below on you know, how you can support the channel, and obviously, you know, things that I use. So this variety is Hurst Greenshaft, so hopefully if you got the bit of gutter and knockabout, it's worth a go. But yeah, it's time to start your peas now, so thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.